London doesn't need trumpets to know when the axis tilts, the city feels it, the way old bricks feel rain before it falls. One glance at the museum gates, one line from a trusted court scribe, and the capital held a long, intelligent breath. The heirs were back. Summer, with its soft-focus Highland secrecy, had done its work. Balmoral exhaled. The red squirrel gossip died with the embers, the fishing lines were wound, and the granite walls released their grip. In the clear air that follows retreat came the movement that matters, William and Catherine stepping into London light, not to be seen in gilded echo chambers, but to place their hands in soil where the future is actually growing. It is a mistake to call this the end of a holiday. Balmoral has never been a vacation. It is a private chapel where monarchs go to trade noise for stamina. The late Queen mastered that liturgy, disappear into weather and dogs, walk the same paths until grief learned their curves, then come down the mountain and do the work. The heirs understand the grammar. They do not return with trumpets, they return with a choice that says more than a speech. The Natural History Museum was not a diary filler. It was a thesis disguised as a stroll. A Victorian cathedral to curiosity, reimagined as a garden that teaches children the stubborn facts of life in a crowded century. Pollinators matter, soil heals, small hands can repair what large hands often break. Catherine has long read this place as scripture. As patron, she has threaded science into royal symbolism, with a quiet insistence that would have bored a lesser mind. The redeveloped grounds feed into the National Education Nature Park. Classrooms will speak the language of biodiversity as fluently as arithmetic. Bring heirs there on the first step back, and you do not merely open a project. You declare the monarchy's chosen scale, knee-high, dirt under fingernails, hope measured in seedlings rather than headlines. The announcement did not roll in like thunder, it landed like a pebble dropped with perfect aim. Rebecca Inglis' line appeared, September 4th, the Prince and Princess of Wales, Natural History Museum, and the ripples told the rest. No balcony, no baton waved to a cheering boulevard, just a calendar adjustment you could watch in real time. Buckingham posted the Highland coda, the King and Queen, laughter tucked into Balmoral's evening light, music bouncing off old stone like good memories do. Then, across the map and across the age gap, came the answer, London, morning, work. Without concession speeches or coronation oaths, the baton moved a few inches down the track. If you want to understand why gardens, answer first why now. Charles owns conservation as rhetoric, he planted that banner decades before it was fashionable. William and Catherine now translate rhetoric into habit. His earth-shot points at distant horizons. Her patronage teaches 9-year-olds how to coax a bee back to a playground. Heir and consort in training, standing together in a living laboratory, fuse those lanes into one narrative, custodianship as daily practice. To a country exhausted by promises and addicted to proof, the optics are oxygen. This is how 1,000 quiet battles are won before anyone thinks to name them. The scene wrote itself with that clipped poetry London does so well. The museum's Romanesque arches wore the city's grey like a good suit. The new pathways curved not toward marble, but toward micromeadows. Children, faces open in the way adults forget, leaned over low fences, announcing to a future king and queen how worms turn waste to life and why wildflower pomp is not frivolity, but infrastructure. Catherine crouched until her eyes were level with a girl who held up a seed packet like treasure. William asked the practical questions that make engineers of boys who thought they were just playing in dirt. Photographers got the smile shots, as they always do. The better picture was the angle you can't capture, authority choosing not to posture, but to learn. Do not be fooled by the pastoral. Every re-entry of the heirs is also a soft rehearsal for succession. Charles is neither frail nor finished, but time is a tactless accountant. Camilla has steadied him into a plausible domestic rhythm, but public affection has limits and long memories. The country sees what the palace cannot say out loud, The couple who read as tomorrow stepped into London while the couple who read as today stayed in Scotland to close the book on summer. No one is pushed, no one is pulled. The choreography does the persuading. People older than 50, Britain's constitutional memory, register the shift without panic, because it is written in decent manners rather than drama. Catherine's share of this is not decoration. She has, over a dozen careful years, become the kingdom's preferred temperature. The trick is simple to describe and brutal to execute. Give enough of the person to humanize the role, protect enough of the person to keep affection useful. She never begs the lens for intimacy, she never starves the public of grace. That is why rooms settle when she enters. It is also why an institution that has lost the habit of being forgiven finds that forgiveness is still possible around her. At the museum, she did what she always does when the stakes are high and the stage is deliberately modest. She listened as if ready to be corrected. William knows the map he is walking. The monarchy's survival relies on 4 verbs done without fuss: show up, shut up, read up, follow up. He has his father's forensic appetite for detail without his father's need to explain. He has his grandmother's allergy to panic without her reliance on silence. Earthshot is the headline, but the museum is the work. Stand in a garden with a primary schooler, and you begin to see how a prize becomes a syllabus, how a syllabus becomes a habit, how a habit becomes a country's reflex. That, not balcony theatre, is how crowns endure when parliaments change colour and energy bills write the news. Meanwhile, the Highland postcard did its job. Charles and Camilla, framed by Heather and history, allowed the nation to see that the sovereign is permitted to exhale. Balmoral is their inheritance and their sanctuary. The picture was a benediction on an honest truth: rest is not retreat when it returns as competence. Yet contrast is a ruthless storyteller. Where Balmoral says, "We are well," London says, "We are ready." The timing placed both sentences in the same paragraph. Readers drew the conclusion the institution intended. There is, beneath the choreography, an untidy human plot. Every September sets the family on its rails. Schedules find their grooves, patronages wake, private vows made in August light are tested by grim commuter mornings. The Wales children shoulder their own rituals, uniforms sharpen, timetables bite, while their parents step into days that ask them to be plausible in 3 different rooms before lunch. The King's desk grows its familiar paper skyline. The Queen's diary acquires the events where her poise still buys the crown time. Around them, satellites complain or comply according to character. The institution moves, because enough people prefer duty to grievance and, because the cleverest among them have learned to make duty attractive again. Watch how the museum visit touches more levers than it admits. It flatters neither artifice nor wealth, it flatters competence. It says to teachers, "We see you." It says to parents, "We know your children are the only policy that matters." It says to voters, "Whatever you think of the crown as an idea, it is here, being useful at a scale no minister will be fired for ignoring." It also says to a skeptical, data-fed generation, that monarchy is not a costume drama confined to anniversaries, but a service industry built to dignify ordinary attention. That is a hard promise to keep, and the only one worth making. The other half of the message travelled in silence. There was no attempt to overshadow the King's Highland coda. There was no briefing war disguised as coincidence. What reached the country was simply the sense that baton work, endurance handed to vigor without the vulgarity of show, had been done. Those who wish earnestly for spectacle will sneer that gardens are small and museums are safe. Those who manage actual legitimacy will answer that small and safe are where trust is repaired. It is an unfashionable doctrine, and therefore exactly right. By afternoon the ripples had spread farther than the museum railings. A head teacher in Leeds ordered extra soil. A parish council in Kent moved a motion to spare a scruffy verge for wildflowers, instead of a sign no one reads. A retired engineer in Shropshire wrote to a grandson he hadn't called all summer to talk about dragonflies and windowsills. These are not triumphs. They are the little hinge swings by which countries quietly change the way they speak about themselves. The monarchy cannot claim their authorship. It can be proud of their direction. And what of the inevitable chorus? Where is the reconciliation? Where is the balcony that promises an end to division? The answer is the same in September as it was in June and will be in January. Not here, not like that, not in a frame designed for someone else's movie. Repair, if it is real, happens in rooms without microphones and survives, because it was not timed to a camera. The heirs did not return to complete a family saga. They returned to complete a week. When the cars pulled away, and the museum folded back into its ordinary life, the story did not end, it diffused. The city resumed its rhythm, buses heaved, pigeons plotted, commuters revised their private treaties with time. In a quiet room at Kensington a notice board was updated, in a corridor at Buckingham a box changed hands, in a staff kitchen at Windsor a kettle boiled for a woman who had stood for 6 hours without complaint. This is what renewal looks like from the inside, not thunderclaps, but the satisfying click of routines finding their place. It would be easy to demand more pageantry, or to accuse the day of smallness. But the crown does not survive by magnitude. It survives by calibration. Pick the room that teaches rather than dazzles. Pick the subject that endures rather than trends. Pick the tone that the country can live with in the grey months when nobody is in the mood to be impressed. William and Catherine have learned this in public without breaking. Charles and Camilla, for all their complicated history, have proved it by coming back from summers as something more than rested, as ready. So the season turns with less drama than prediction, and more meaning than noise. Balmoral's echoes fade into the heather. The museum's gates swing shut on a day that will look small on a timeline and loom large in memory. 2 figures stepped forward, not with crowns on their heads, but with duty etched into their posture, and London, suspicious, affectionate, impossible, decided to allow them the benefit of the doubt again. In soil no one would have cared about 20 years ago, the heirs planted a message a country older than its cynicism still wants to hear. Continuity is not accident, it is choice. Renewal is not a stunt, it is work. And if the work begins in a garden, that is not trivial. It is prophetic.